along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is quite indeed.
Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Three Beers Podcast. Tonight we have two special guests returning, as always, Joey and Tonya Madia. We're going to be talking about Tesla's theories, how they work out with the paranormal, and I'm going to butcher the name so bad, but I think it's called the Schumann Resonance. But we talked about it before because Joey had a theory back when he was younger about time moving slower and faster, and it caught my attention. He had a theory about it when he was a kid, and I was like, we got to do a show on that, because recently, even when I messaged you, I felt like that day was going really slow. Or I can't remember what it was. And then when you said normally when it comes to the end of time moves faster. And I was like, okay, now I need to sit back. I need to understand this, because if it's going faster, I don't want end of times. So I'm going to let you run with it. Because when I was trying to do some research, it was just my mind was blowing left and right. And I'm like, I need some help.
Well, we're all in it together. So we're happy to be here. So, we're just going to – Tonya and I have been watching a lot of stuff with Nikola Tesla. And he kind of, if we look at his theories and what he was doing, what he was tapped into, I think we can start to understand some of that. So why don't you kick us off with his famous quote?
Yes. So Nikola Tesla famously said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And I always use that quote particularly when I'm talking about what I do, which is mediumship, because really at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I mean, really everything that we talk about, right? Because everything is energy. So everything that we're experiencing, these phenomenons and, everything, including the Schumann resonance, which we'll get to, it's all frequency and vibration. So
Tesla being like brilliant and leaving us all in the dust with his brilliance. He's talking about the universe. When you think about the universe, and also I'm with you, it's so I started doing some research about the universe. What is the universe? 95% of the universe, scientists, really smart people, really have no idea what it is. 95% of it is dark matter. Mm-hmm. It's this stuff. They know it has gravity, but it doesn't behave like that 5% that we're used to. And then there's dark energy, which is what makes the universe go. It's the motor that makes the universe go. And they hardly understand. So remember that number, because we're going to throw some more numbers at you tonight that shows you how little even the smartest people on the planet understand about what we're experiencing. So let's start with that number. 95% of the universe, we don't even understand how it works. Okay.
So if we're going to talk about Tesla's work, we want to talk a little bit about Tesla himself. We'll give you a little background on him. And I think it's very interesting to note that Tesla was born during a really vicious lightning storm. Because his connections with electricity and his inventions and discoveries and everything, I think that's just fascinating. But the midwife said that he would be a child of darkness because of the storm that was occurring, but his mother said that he would be a child of light. And I agree with his mother.
Yeah. So it gets more interesting though. Go ahead, Chris.
his energy was amazing. Like reading over some of his dialogue, his energy was crazy amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and there was an abundance of it, and he had terrible nightmares when he was a kid, and he would get these visions that would dominate his life. He was a very solitary kid. He would play down by the stream by their house. His father was a minister. His mom invented kitchen appliances and all. He spent a lot of time by himself, and his visions, these flashes of light with these visions of other things, got so bad that when he was 12 years old, he said, look, I have to take control of this. And through sheer force of will, he started to control his visions of reality. And those visions of reality were way more expansive than ours, which I think is really interesting.
Yes, and he was also a germaphobe. And he was generally distrustful of humans, which would bear out, I think, in terms of his suspicious nature. And because a lot of inventors and colleagues ultimately took advantage of him.
Yeah, I mean, Edison and Westinghouse, there were these two guys from Jersey. I'm not surprised being from Jersey. He invented an arc lamp for him, and then they stole the patent and they didn't give him anything. At one point, before he really started to hit big, he was digging ditches for $2 a day in America. So we all have hope. We all, he had his low moments. But in 1881, he's still in Europe. He has this flash of inspiration, and he sees a rotating magnetic field in his mind, and that leads to the induction engine. And conventional wisdom says that the induction engine is one of the most important mechanical inventions ever, right? So for that reason, we asked the question.
Yeah, why is it important to, really look at Nikola Tesla and understand everything that he did? He was way ahead of his time on electricity and radio waves, light bulbs, X-rays, robotics. I mean, he was way ahead of his time. Lasers, wireless communication, all of these things.
Did you guys know that in the 1880s, I think he had a boat that he operated by remote control?
In the 1880s? That's amazing.
Yeah, he was doing wireless radio signals. So he was also fluent in 8 languages, and he held in total, although he sold some of them and some were stolen, 300 patents.
Oh my God.
40 only
Wow.
just on
This guy was
alternating
amazing.
current. Yeah, and he had an eidetic memory, which is slightly better than photographic. So he memorized entire books by reading them once. He was brilliant, and yet he was tortured. And that's like so many people who are gifted with the paranormal, that see spirits, that see UFOs, that claim abductee, contactee. They're very awkward socially. They see reality in a different way. So he's an interesting guy.
Absolutely a visionary. And in fact, he was able to visualize the inventions in his head. And then he would perfect them over time in his mind. Like, wow. And then he would build it from memory. And of course, that again speaks to his eidetic memory.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So let's go back to his opening quote and let's break it down, right? So if you want to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Now, Tonya and I are not scientists by any stretch of the imagination, but we're trying to learn this stuff. So we're just going to go through it quickly. So what is energy? It is power derived from the utilization of physical or chemical resources, especially to provide light, there it is again, and heat, or to work machines.
And vibrations refer to the oscillating, moving back and forth at a regular speed, movement of atoms and particles caused by energy. So all humans and objects have an energy field, and that energy field has its own vibrational frequency.
Which becomes really, really important in understanding what's beyond the veil and keeping ourselves healthy and protected. And then frequency. So frequency is measured in hertz, And this is the rate at which vibrations and oscillations can occur. So energy gives birth to this vibration, this movement, and frequency is the way that we measure it.
So one thing that he did with one of his experiments is that he caused an earthquake in New York with his oscillator.
Oh no!
Who's the little guy? Dee, the little cartoon guy, the little scientist. He's a little kid, like mad scientist.
Not Dexter.
Yeah, Dexter.
Oh, okay.
Dexter. Yeah. You know. Oh, let me see what happens if. Let's see what happens if I do this. You okay?
My chair just.
Your chair just popped. That was weird. That was energy
I think it was
and oscillation
Tesla.
and earthquake.
Yeah.
That was bizarre.
It was so weird. My chair just dropped.
Your chair just. Oh wow, weird. Okay. Hello, Tesla.
Was that the
here.
was that 7.83 hertz?
Yeah, it might have been.
It must have been.
Hey, did you say 7.83, Chris?
Yeah.
You just totally set us up, man. Tesla was able to isolate the frequency at which the Earth pulsates, which is the heartbeat of the Earth, which is the Schumann resonance. So here we are. This is the big topic that Austin really got hooked into. So let's talk about this.
So the Schumann resonance is also known as the heartbeat of the Earth. And as Chris mentioned, it's 7.83 hertz, which is also happens to be the frequency of theta brainwave in the human brain. So theta is associated with like a deep sleep or deep trance state. And the Earth is calibrated to this frequency, as are humans. And there's actually a practice that I recommend to many of my clients called earthing. And it's a way that you can ground your energy. And it's just very, very simple. You just take your shoes off and your socks and put your feet in the earth. And it sort of helps, entrain you with the earth, with the Earth's frequency, because different things affect our energy field and our brain waves, things like cellular waves, microwaves, radio waves, computers, all these electronics can throw our energy field off and our brain waves. So by putting our feet in the earth, if you're feeling a little off or untethered, earthing is a great way to do it.
When the Earth is going at that frequency, a nice theta frequency, right? So that's go out and commune with nature, and that's behind all this. But an interesting thing is going on. 7 to 10 years ago, although the Schumann resonance was steady at 7.83 hertz, it began to jump. And it began to jump anywhere between 15 and 25 hertz. And it's gone as high as 36 plus. So now,
so what does that mean when? So not to cut you off, but while it's on the brain, if it jumps as high as 36 hertz, what does that cause? How does that deal with the energy level as 36 hertz? Like I'm seeing, if it's a normal range of 15 to 25 hertz and it jumps to 36, what happens at that 36 hertz?
That's a great question. So at around 30 hertz, the human brainwave activity would be in what we call beta brainwaves. And in beta, that's when you're sort of like, if you've ever had, nonstop thoughts where you just can't like shut your brain down. It's high activity in the brain when you're just kind of, there's a lot of chatter happening. So I think at that, it can be causing people to feel anxious. It can have people feel a little agitated.
You guys are very into USC. So when you go to a sporting event, the music, the heartbeat is racing, the big entrance of the fighters, the fighting itself, that's a beta state. Mm-hmm. It's the state of, English football, right? The soccer clubs and all that.
No, forget that. I'm always in a beta state because I'm always trying to figure out how to get rich. So, I'm probably running at 34, 35 hertz, trying to figure out how to get rich, trying to master something.
You know what though? That could be alpha, which is like 15 to 25. That's our normal sort of operating state. We're all probably in an elevated alpha right now because we're on air and we're all trying to do a good job while Craig is off having a birthday dinner with his wife. So we're all under a little bit, probably pushing us to the beta just a bit. But in general, we're in the alpha. So what's going on then is the question becomes, is the Earth reacting to us? You know, because we're in a more tense state. Is the Earth reacting to us and speeding up because of that? Is the natural evolution of the Earth now to speed up and we need to evolve and get into that state? That's the science and the philosophy and the mysticism around all of that is interesting. So Austin, you mentioned this dream that I had when I was a kid, and it was a recurring dream, and I was, let's say, from the years 7 to 10. And it happened at least a couple times a week. And I'd be sleeping, and all of a sudden, like in a dark movie theater, up would come the Earth. As if, like, when we see the astronauts, you know, from space and they're looking at the Earth, this big, beautiful blue orb. And it begins to spin. And it starts real, real slow. And then suddenly it gets faster and faster. And below the Earth appears this odometer. And the numbers just click, 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 click. And there were these rituals that I had to go through with my hands in order to get the Earth to stop spinning so fast so I could go back to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you call that an out-of-body? Would you refer to that as an out-of-body experience, or that was just something you were dreaming in the metaphysical realm?
Oh, that's a really good question, Chris. I think it had to do with a lot of the stress that I felt as a kid, and this feeling maybe of responsibility, but also if I should be entrained with the Earth, and my heart is racing, or I'm having these panic attacks, or I'm under stress, it's going to manifest visually in that dream realm as the Earth speeding up almost to match what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So these rituals maybe could have been my higher self helping me to calm down. So I would go through these rituals, and the Earth would slow down, I would slow down, and then I would fall asleep. So when I think it was an article, did you guys post an article about the Schumann resonance? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did, Austin. You posted an article about it, and then I wrote to you and said, "Oh, I had this weird dream," and that's where we got in the conversation. Yeah. So I think that's what was going on. I've had out of body experiences, astral travel, and all that. It wasn't that, but it was some kind of connection that I had with that, and I think we're all feeling it. Mm-hmm. You know, what is your guys' sense? Do you feel like time is speeding up and things are more a lot of the time?
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's days. Like I can't go back at the moment. And when I messaged you, I mean, it was so long ago, but there's just, I mean, it could be something different where you're just, the day is dragging on. You know, like, oh, the day is dragging on. Everyone says that, but like, there's times where I go to work, I'm like, man, the day is really dragging on. Or like, there's days I go to work, I'm like, oh my God, it's already 1 o'clock. Like, how did the day go so fast? And maybe, I don't know. But that's why it caught my attention. I was like, if it goes faster towards the end of the times, then what's shifting so much? I think it should be, if it's end of the times, we're heading towards it, let's snowball it. But if it's not, what's changed, you know, to bring it back? Now we're going slow. That's why I was like, wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frequency
I mean, some day, yeah, like he said, some days seem super fast, some days seem super slow, and I mean, once you start astral projecting in the faster realm, is it supposed to slow back down, or is it going to continue to speed up until we reach the end of life or eternity as we know it?
I don't know that I always talk about keeping your candle lit, which is all about frequency, which is all about vibration. I don't have that dream anymore, and I kind of outgrew this. It took me a long time. I was in my 40s before I thought that it was my responsibility to save the world. Now I'm just trying to save myself. You know, I'm just trying to,
Aren't we
I'm
all?
trying to look after my own business, you know, so to speak. But being sensitive to, and it's an interesting thing, right? One of Tesla's contemporaries, who we'll talk about a little later, was Albert Einstein, of course. And they worked on some projects together. And Einstein, I lost my train of thought here. Einstein. Oh, there's something called Einstein time. So I don't know if you guys saw the Pixar movie on Disney, Soul.
I haven't watched it thoroughly. My kids watch it. I'm always in and out, so I really need to sit down and actually watch it, not like kid watch it.
It was perfect for me because at one point in the movie, this like psychedelic pirate ship comes over the horizon, like on the other side of the veil, and there's this hippie wizard, and he's talking about people being sort of in this zone where they're doing their thing. Time totally melts away, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm the hippie wizard in the pirate ship living in that zone. So part of what you guys are talking about, not all of it, is if you're engaged in the day, if you're having a good day, if the work is interesting, the boss isn't hassle. I hope your boss isn't listening, but you know, but everything's going well. Time's going to go faster. If some challenges are coming up, if there's something you're really looking forward to, as opposed to something you're dreading. So some of your audience were talking about how time only exists on Earth. It's relative. That's an important piece of this whole puzzle. Time is something we make up. What they say. So everything doesn't happen all at once. He said, you know, is the definition of time.
Talking about things from childhood, I remember being really young and having this just kind of knowing like that time was just an illusion, and that really everything that ever has or ever will happened all in like one. I mean, I think of it like the Big Bang. Everything happened in that moment. That was kind of an idea I had even in childhood. So I think that time is really, you know, just our perception, and it's the only way for us to experience this reality is to have this perception that, you know, moment after moment after moment is unfolding, when in reality it was just one big sort of thing.
Right. And like April says, and she's very wise, she's saying so many great things. It's not linear. And we'll talk about that in terms of Tesla, but it's a great setup. You guys want to talk about quantum physics for just a little bit? Just some base ideas of quantum physics. So very base.
When we talk about our reality and the way that we interact with, you know, our objective reality, it's through our five senses, generally our eyes, our ears, you know, our sense of touch. And this is converted electromagnetic light and mechanical sound waves. It come in through electrical signals, and then they are interpreted by our brain. And I think you were telling me, Joey, when you were doing the research, we're exposed to how many bits of.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Ahead here.
So we have this objective reality, which is just a construct, right? We all agree that we're here doing this. You're each in your rooms. We're in our rooms. We have walls. We have surfaces. All that kind of stuff. And for very practical reasons. But yeah, so we talk about so why is this happening? So in quantum mechanics, there are waves and there are particles. There are these movements, and then there are these stationary fixed positions, waves and particles. And there's this famous double slit experiment that shows that light and matter can display characteristics of both waves and particles, depending on who's looking at them and what you're trying to measure. So that's been around a long time. So, and if you, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle says that if you measure the position of something, you can't measure the speed. If you measure the speed, you can't measure the location. You can only measure one thing at once because it switches between wave and particle. This, because we were talking about how this all ties into the paranormal and all, when we're dealing with ghosts, spirits, other beings, possible aliens, ETs, whatever you want to call them, they're behaving in these ways as well. You know, there's a huge trickster element to it. There's free will with sentient beings. So, you know, somehow we think when we go over to the veil, like we can capture it, we can study it. You know, science is always saying, oh, you know, this stuff isn't real because we can't measure it in a lab. Well, this is not. This is more akin to quantum mechanics. So, okay, you want to talk about a wave collapse?
Yeah.
Because this is really
so
important.
this is kind of, Chris, you were talking about trying to figure out how to get rich. So you're going to want to listen to this. So this is really all about the collapse of the wave function. So you have these waves of probability. And then with intention, which we were talking about just before the show, with your intention, you can collapse that wave probability into the particle, and then it becomes manifest. So for you, what you want to do to collapse that wave function is you want to imagine that you already are rich.
Yeah.
So when you're walking around your house, yeah, exactly. Believe it's already here. And that is the vibration and the frequency that you're sending out to the universe. Well, the universe can only respond with like. And this is, you know, things like The Secret, like attraction. If you believe it's already here, you're sending that out to the universe. The universe is only going to show up with that frequency. And that's why people a lot of times, like if you want something, I want it. Let's say it's a car. I want the car. I want the car. And you're sending that frequency of want out to the universe. Well, the universe is only going to show up with more want. So the more you want something, the more you're going to push it away. You have to believe that it's already here, and that's the collapse of the wave function into.
So Chris, if you could drive any car in the world every day, what car would it be?
It would be a Bugatti, hands down.
Nice. All right. So
Bugatti.
when you get in whatever it is that you drive, imagine that you're in the Bugatti.
I drive.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, it's coming. But what did you say though? But what did you say though? You said I pretend. You have to believe it. You have to believe it.
You gotta believe it.
This is getting a little like a tent revival up in here. But that's really what these guys were doing, which is what we're going to talk about. So now let's get to something else. So we're coming back, right? Everything has a frequency. There are all these probabilities, and you want to focus on just that one solid probability. I am Chris, and I am rich. I drive a Bugatti. I live here. I do this. This is my job. This is my bank account. And you believe it. Now, when you start to tell other people as if it's reality, that gets a little cool. But inside, in your core, you're collapsing that wave probability, and you're already there. So why does all of this work? How can we entrain with something that we can't even see? Well, this is called quantum entanglement, which I think is so cool. So in 1935, Einstein, who said God doesn't play dice with the universe, also categorized quantum entanglement as spooky or ghostly action at a distance. So this was something not explainable, but it happened. So if you take two particles and you send them to literally opposite ends of the universe, if you change the spin orientation of one, the other one is immediately going to change to that spin orientation instantaneously. It breaks down all the laws of the speed of light, all the limitations of time, space, everything go away in the case of quantum entanglement. Well, if we're quantumly entangled with everything, then that's how we get there. Whether it's about being rich or it's about communicating with those who have passed over or higher intelligences. Mr. Ansel, you should be at dinner. He's taking a busman's holiday. We look forward to you listening to it too. So that's how all of this is starting to now come into play with what Tesla's going on, because this is about all these fields. So now we're going to get into pretty soon how little we know and understand. But go ahead with it.
Yeah, so in 1895, Tesla was experimenting with manipulating time and space using magnetic fields. And he stood within a magnetic field and claimed that he was able to see the past, the present, and the future simultaneously, which again kind of goes in line with what I was thinking as a child. Like it's all unfolding at once.
Right.
And also that if you had the ability to say, I've always thought like time travel would never be possible in the way that we think of it. But I've always believed, again, since I was a child, that there has to be a way that you can sort of observe time as the observer, like a VHS. That shows my age, but like a video, like a, video cassette.
He also used magnetic fields to levitate objects. So now we have this whole, right? So we got radio waves, we got ultraviolet waves, we got X-rays, we got gamma rays. We also have this magnetic field, right? We just found out that there's a big, they don't know if it's an embedded meteor or if it's something more fascinating, depending on what your take is on the moon. Is it mostly hollow? Was it parked there? Like, what's going on? But it's a giant magnetized piece of something under the surface of the moon, and it does affect what's going on with us. So magnetics is a huge part of it, and he was right in it. So this is where I think, I don't know if you guys know this connection, but we're going to get into a famous experiment now, which you probably know about.
So Tesla in the 1930s was part of a team that included Einstein, and they were working on electromagnetism and invisibility. And these tests led to the tests in the Brooklyn Yard, the very famous or infamous, depending on how
these
you
are
look
actually
at it.
the precursor. They did 2 tests at the Brooklyn Navy Yard on 2 small ships in 1940. You guys know where this is leading? All right, we're going to get you there.
Roll with it.
All right, so now it gets, because it's Tesla. Tesla claimed to have been picking up signals from outer space, right? Which now we have the SETI array, and there's lots of people who are listening for communications from space. He was one of the first guys. But there's a rumor that he was actually in contact with extraterrestrial beings, and they sent him a message. They did the tests on the 2 small ships in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Then they moved the experiment to Philadelphia. And they were about to do an experiment on a ship called the USS Eldridge.
Eldridge.
And the extra, oh man, I sound like Giorgio. I said extraterrestrials. The extraterrestrials told him that doing a test on a ship carrying personnel would be a mistake. So what does Tesla do? Because he's always trying to do the right thing. He gets a bad rap because he invented a death ray. But he's trying to do the right thing. So in 1942, he sabotages this test. So they fire him. They can him. And they replace him by the physicist John von Neumann. And they do the test in Philadelphia on the USS Eldridge. There are 33 men on board, and the ship vanishes. It disappears. And it shows up at a later time.
Disappears.
Out of a space-time hole. I think it showed up in Virginia.
I think.
But the rumors, and it's highly contested in UFO and paranormal lore and all, but there were men that were sort of half in and half out of like bulkheads melted into the surface.
People disappeared altogether.
Yeah, I think you guys would be really interested in checking out the Philadelphia experiment. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Jessup, his work, Carlos Allende. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating stuff that we may have done that. They may have magnetized this ship and got it to jump, but the particle scrambling and what it did when it reassembled was, I think some of the men went crazy.
Yes.
So
I would say so.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. So that was one of the applications of Tesla's work. And then there's another that you guys, being the Three Beards, I think also probably know about.
Right. So you guys probably heard about HAARP, or the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP for short. A lot of people talk about how it affects the weather. Some people speculate it's involved in mind control. But it definitely, what we do know is that it has its roots in Tesla's ideas. And there was a joint Navy Air Force program in Alaska, studying the ionosphere. And it was publicly shut down in 2013 after global criticism of the possible of it being an EM weapon. And the Air Force said that they want to dominate the weather.
So you guys have probably heard that, right? The Air Force said that the weapon.
Do you notice that every time we get close to discovering stuff, they like shut it down? Don't want to put this out there. Let's just shut it down. Every time anybody gets close to discovering anything that coincides with theory, they're like, "I'm gonna shut it down. Don't worry about it. Just shut it down."
But I'm gonna adjust that a little, Chris. They don't shut it down. They shut down the version that got right. So Blue Book got shut down, Condon Committee shut it down, and then all of a sudden we find out tens of millions of dollars, and decades later we have ATIP, and now ATIP has become this other thing because ATIP got outed. So, and I don't want to go too far afield, but the virus research and all of that, it was shut down here. It just got moved offshore. So that's part of it. So, but the United States Air Force, we were just watching chemtrails. They make these chemtrails like right over our house that look like a big anarchy A. Like nobody flies that way. There's no reason to make, the shape of an anarchic A in the sky once a week. So something's going on there. So I kind of do subscribe to the theory that they're putting various metals into the atmosphere to test the weather. Maybe they're doing it to try to save us from ourselves. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Chemtrails and all that.
Why trying to save it from ourselves, but we have so many other things we've done on Earth. Like we go back to saying about the moon, it's a whole different subject. But like Craig always brings up, why have we not gone back to the moon?
Mm-hmm.
If the moon, you see, I love fishing. Whenever it's the full moon, everyone's fishing because that's when the fish bite the most. The moon, changes our mood, changes the tides and everything. It's like, but we're not researching that because it doesn't interest us, I feel like. But no, we're going to go throw stuff up into the sky and just mess with that. For what? Yeah. What's the point?
Absolutely. He just hit on something really big there. When I worked in the funeral home business, you could go outside and at the new moon, you could realize that there was going to be a lot of deaths that night. I'd pick up 20, 30 bodies on between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on a new moon. The moon is full. Everything is crazy. And it's crazy how cosmic energy of the moon regulates death, even when you have a cold snap. Like when it's been really hot, and then it starts to go into the cold season and you have a cold snap, you can see how it's not theory in that aspect when you work for like an entity, like a funeral home or something like that. You're like, okay, it's a cold snap. The phone be ringing off the hook and you're picking up a lot of bodies. And then the moon gets full. And then as the moon dies off, the death rate slows down. So for you not to believe any of this, it would be crazy. And it's just like, I don't know.
It's unexplainable.
You know what though? You bring up a great point because there's a show with William Shatner that we love on history called The Unexplained, and just this past Friday night was Mysteries of the Moon. So they get to the point about lunacy, which is Luna, about the moon, all that kind of stuff, and they have a segment where these talking heads go. EMT people who say that they get more calls, it's all BS. And I went, wait a minute. No. So Chris, from his perspective in the funeral business, we all know that. There's a big mental institution in the middle of West Virginia, closed down decades ago when a lot of them did. But we know several people who worked there, their parents worked there. And this one guy, a friend of mine, said that he would walk to the building and sit in his dad's car and read comic books while his dad was working. And when there was a full moon, the inmates would all be at the windows, literally howling at the moon, causing a stir. And I don't think that was some kind of agreement where they were like, let's use the moon as an excuse and go a little nuts. No. So this frequency, this magnetism, this resonating, the Earth and the moon have a weird partnership. I say weird because we don't really understand it. The moon is very big compared to the size of the Earth when you look at moons in relation to other, and the definite effects, including on our mental health. So I think that takes us back to the Schumann resonance, how they're in position together, and what happens. So what we're really talking about here is the electromagnetic spectrum. So we've been hitting on all the different parts. And the electromagnetic spectrum is the range of wavelengths, and there's frequencies again, over which electromagnetic radiation extends. So, Hun, from highest to lowest, they are?
From highest to lowest, gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet radiation, visible light, which we'll talk about, infrared radiation, and radio waves. Microwaves are a subsection of the radio wave segment.
So remember, pop quiz, guys. How much of the universe do we not really have any understanding of? You remember the percentage?
My mic is muted. 95%.
Right, 95%. Okay. We just mentioned the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, visible light, infrared radiation, and radio waves. Microwaves contained in radio waves. You want to guess what percent of the electromagnetic spectrum is visible light?
What percent?
Is it 35% of the spectrum?
No.
13%.
0.0035. So Chris saying no, Austin saying 35%. You were just off by a couple of decimal places. So a third of a percent.
No, I said 35%. So you can't give me credit for mine. It's zero.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm banned for life. I am banned for life. How about Chris's bad side?
You can't ban the experts at the Outer Rim, Joey and Tonya in the Outer Rim. If you really want to look them up, go to the Joey and Tonya in the Outer Rim. You can find more great stuff with them guys.
I think he's saying goodnight.
I think it's
the closer. We're done. We're banned.
No, I was just throwing that plug because that was a great segue to throw that plug in. I was just, giving the guys something to look at later when they get off our show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, 0.0035%. So we only understand what's going on with 5% of the universe. We can only see what's going on 0.0035, and then get this.
So this is what I was talking about earlier when I was jumping the gun a little bit. So the human body is perceiving 11 million bits of information per second. So 11 million bits per second are entering the brain for processing, but the conscious mind is only able to process anywhere from 50 to 4,000 bits per second. 50 to 4,000, even 4,000. Let's say you're being hyper alert and you're processing 4,000 bits. That's such a tiny amount of what you're actually receiving.
Sorry, I have a washer going. You said we only perceive 4,000. What decides what we want to process of the 11, million?
That is a great question, Austin.
I think a lot of it has to do with, and I work with a lot of people as a hypnotist and as a life coach. A lot of the things that we work on are like patterns, behavioral patterns, just patterns, emotional patterns that people have. I think a lot of it has to do with familiarity. So it has to do with patterns. It has to do with what you're used to. The human brain is designed to recognize patterns. But so if it's something that's familiar to you, it's probably something that's going to enter your awareness. There's a theory that when Chris Columbus was sailing toward the Americas, that the indigenous people actually couldn't see his ships at all because it was something that they had never seen before. So it was something that their brain couldn't even process.
Wow, I never thought of that.
I've never seen. In normal life, when you see something that is not explainable and your brain is like, what did I just see? Is that referring to what you're talking about? Because sometimes in life you see stuff and you're like, I can't even process what's really happening here. But hold on, let me take a break and figure it out.
Yeah, that's it. And when it comes to ufology and abductee, contactee, we call it screen memories. So that's where the owl comes in, or the deer. You know, I showed you guys that picture of this thing that I saw. It was an alien, but it presented to me looking kind of like a deer or an elk, because to present to me as a gray 11 years ago, now I would probably be like, very cool, let's chat, I have questions. But 11 years ago, I couldn't handle it. So they kind of, you know, wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing.
I think it's the same thing too.
Yeah.
Like if we've been on investigations and we'll have cynics, and they're just going to reject any, you know, that's why you can never provide any kind of evidence or information to a hardcore cynic. Their brain will just reject it outright.
Yeah. As was famously said, and it's disputed who said it.
Throw it out.
Just reject it.
Yeah.
It's not coming in with that 4,000 bits of information.
Our minds are like parachutes. They only work when they open. But some people just can't handle, right? You can't handle the truth. It's a hard dose of reality. We have all of these expressions in our daily lives that have to do with the fact that when these big things come down on us, we can't handle them. And we're getting bombarded with 11 million bits of information per second. We're trying to sort through them. Chastity has a question here. Do you believe utilizing your brain has to do with your third eye? Tonya?
Wow, that's a great question. I think, Chastity, in the sense that things like meditation. So when we have a regular meditation practice, I think we tend to have a little more control over the activity that's happening in our brain. And when we do that, we can certainly utilize the availability of what we call the third eye, or psychic perception. But it's really, to me, it's all about meditation and training your brain. So Chris was asking, how do we decide what is that information we're going to perceive? You can certainly train yourself through meditation.
Right. And it also, too... Go ahead, Chris.
So does the third eye bring awareness to some of these things we can't process with our two eyes? Does the third eye is supposed to bring awareness to some of the stuff that are, help our brain understand some of the stuff that our two eyes can't see?
Yeah, because think about it. And this is what we hope to talk about, with our remaining time with you tonight. So we can only see with our eyes 0.0035% of what's going on. So if you think in terms, and we don't want to, get too sideways, but if you think of it in terms of the energy system of the body, right, the chakras, they go from low vibration to high vibration. Well, the third eye is the one just below where you're connecting with total cosmic awareness out of the crown. So you're operating at a frequency where you can now tap into, if we get beyond space-time and you're into the place where past, present, and future all exist at the same time, where Tesla was going into, that is all about that third eye awareness. Yeah. So let's talk about that. The difference between the electromagnetic spectrum and that whole other world up top, and how Tesla and Einstein tapped into it, and how we can, and we try to. And people like Tonya, who are psychic mediums, are kind of naturally in that space. So I guess it's me again. Sorry about that. So above the electromagnetic spectrum, very little of which, right? We're so hooked into the electromagnetic spectrum. This is our reality. That's all there is. We're scientists, and we can measure it. We can control it. We can dominate it. We can meld it to technology and weaponry and machinery, but we know so little about it. But above it is this realm of non-local consciousness. So remember quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement is about non-locality. We can be everywhere all at once, and we're hooked into everything. There's lots of different names for it, so pick one that you like or you feel familiar with. The super spectrum, and that's what John Keel called it, simply meaning it's above the regular spectrum. The Akashic record is what a lot of philosophers call it, deep thinkers, mystics. The field, the science, Science will call it the field or the quantum hologram. And that was David Bohm's work. And this is a place of high light vibration. So again, vibration's high, frequency's high. It's tapping into crown chakra and third eye. It's the realm of, this gets a little complicated, but it's not really a big deal. That's the primary implicate order. That's where the core foundation of the universe, of that 95%, is in that area there. So that's why it's primary and implicate. That's where archetypes come from, patterns. Do we really, Chris, can you put that up one more time? That comment?
Yeah, I don't know. Someone's messing with it. I don't know who it is.
Oh, right. Yeah, Chastity. So we were talking about HARP that controls the weather. So we're putting all those things up there. Dan Duke's asking about HARP. HARP stands for High Frequency Active Oral Research Program. So it's beaming things into the ionosphere to study the weather. And we know what happens when scientists, especially backed by the military, like the Air Force, are studying something. They're figuring out how to control it, weaponize it, do all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, we do not know. April says, yeah, but we're trying to figure it out. So anyway, you want to talk about how the electromagnetic spectrum now partners with the super spectrum?
Right. So the electromagnetic spectrum decodes the upper level of super spectrum, for just an easy way to refer to it, and creates our reality. And that's what David Bohm called the second order or second generation.
So just meaning below. So it's secondary. So all the really good information that helps, Chris, where you are rich and doing your thing, man, it's currently maybe not in this electromagnetic spectrum that we hardly understand, but it's up there and you can reach it through the things we were talking about. And we're getting some really cool things that Tesla and Einstein, rather than just being on the realm of frou-frou. Although you being a rich, happy man in a Bugatti that I can drive in when we come visit you, that's legit. Right. So now, here's the cool part. We can travel between the two, and we've already been talking about that. Third eye, raising our frequency, like attraction, not imagining it, but believing it. You know, the brain is pretty powerful. If I practice piano, or I practice free throws, or I practice archery, the same places light up in my brain, whether I'm miming it or I have the actual object in front of me. So the imagination, Einstein said that imagination was more important than knowledge. That's what Einstein said. And I think we're going on why.
So the interaction between them creates consciousness through quantum process in the brain. So again, having the intention, believing that it's already here, sets up the frequency to allow it to then, again, the collapse of the wave function into the particle. Particle is, matter, and then it shows up in this reality.
And Chris becomes a rich man.
And Chris is driving that car. And
Chris is sending us a picture of him with his Bugatti, like Tesla, absolutely. Tesla, baby, all day long. Tesla for the win. So mediums, psychics, shamans. One of your April said that Tesla was a shaman. Absolutely. Childhood illness, big visions. Tapping into all that kind of stuff. That's exactly what a shaman does. Exactly. Tapping into that super spectrum to get information. How did he and Einstein do it? Tapping a pencil. Altering their brain. I don't want to put your audience to sleep, especially if they're driving. You'll get phone calls. But you gotta you got a beta, then you got an alpha, then you got a theta, you got your delta. And it puts you in these different states, but they would literally sit there, and some people doodle. There's been whole books about how doodling on napkins led to major inventions, major things, scraps of paper. Sometimes you'll see pictures of scraps of paper where amazing idea or or if you guys are game planning the show and you have pads of paper, you're probably drawing geometric shapes and, I don't know, maybe stick figures of Craig, like, who knows?
Yeah.
But see, I'm tapping into something. But they would literally do that. And what they think is they were no longer like we try to solve our problems in this realm, right? Oh, I got this problem and I don't know what to do. Well, all the stuff that's around you is what created the problem in the first place. So if you can tap into this state, you're going to see different possibilities, right? Einstein said you will never solve a problem with the same state of mind that created it. And the circus that's going on all around us is because it's that same hive mind, these old systems that are, you guys really bring out the revolutionary in me. I'm much more well-behaved on our show. But the idea of expanding out into these new things, thinking outside the box, right? Getting outside of the mind into the super spectrum.
Yeah, that's meditation.
Yeah, that's exactly meditation, the dream state. That's why a lot of times you go to bed, if you have a problem you're trying to solve, you can set the intention, I'm going to get the answer to this in my dreams. And you wake up and bam, got the solution, problem solved. People talk about that a lot. People get songs, creative material in their dreams.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because your consciousness is traveling up to that super spectrum, to that, unified field, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I mean, most of our listeners and the commenters, they already know about this stuff, meditation, but I talked about it before. And I was at one of my church retreats, and my youth pastor said, go somewhere quiet, just, free your mind. So, of course, I went to the lake, and I sat there. I heard, boats and jet skis, and after 10 minutes, it was just dead silent. And I was like, it's crazy. And then I also had a world history class, like 10th grade, and we stopped for one of our longer periods. She said, just go sit in a corner and I'm going to play some soft music, find your happy place. And it was crazy how fast I clicked into the beach, and I was on the beach, and she's like, all right. And you were there, but in the back of your mind, you hear her going, all right, come back to reality. You're like, whoa, what the hell? And then you're back in the classroom. You have to do that. You have to, like you said, ground yourself. It's just, you need it for your health. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up church, because when you're talking about the super spectrum and the electromagnetic spectrum, right? In organized religion, they say, as in heaven, so it is on earth. And in the more esoteric religions, right, paganism and all, as above, so below. And that's all they're talking about. When you start unpacking this stuff, we have a little bit more if you guys want to continue.
Yeah.
Keep going. I mean,
All right.
We're
kind of coming to the end here, but.
So Gene Houston, in the foreword of Russell Targ's book, Limitless Mind, which if you're interested in this and the Stargate experiments, remote viewing, Russell Targ was, of course, a physicist, one of the physicists in charge of that program. But Gene Houston says, information is available through non-normal, non-local sensory mechanisms that are not explained by classic space-time theories. And that's why science still hasn't,
Mic drop.
Yeah.
If I had an extra mic, I would drop it right now.
Drop a cheap one.
Do you guys know what remote viewing is? Have you heard about that?
Yeah. Someone does it. I think it's Chris Garcia. I think he's remote viewing.
Yeah. So remote viewing, 1980s, 70s, 80s, 1970s, 1980s, Stanford Research Institute in California. CIA is giving them millions of dollars because they can train people and identify people who can see things based on a sealed envelope or a set of coordinates. Tonya and I just adopted their protocols. The next several weeks, we're going to be working with some colleagues to do remote viewing training and experimentation. But tens of millions of dollars. They used it to find Patty Hearst. They used it to find a Russian submarine base. They used it to find a downed Russian plane. They knew a Russian plane had gone down in, I think, Africa or South America. It was during the Carter administration. and remote viewers pinpointed it to like within like a half a mile of where this plane was, sitting in a controlled room, basically sitting in a Faraday cage, right? So an electromagnetically shielded space, and going, okay, here's where you're going to find this plane. And they found it within a half a mile. So that is the culmination of everything we've been talking about tonight, right? Non-normal, non-local sensory mechanisms not explained by classic space-time theories. Get out of the electromagnetic spectrum. We don't know that much about it. Get out of what we know about the universe. We only know 5% of it. Get out of the visible of only what you can see, 0.0035. And when you go out there, you will manifest and you will get information, which is cool. Now, Tesla was doing all this stuff, some of which sounds very woo-woo, right? Okay, when he died, the Secret Service went into his hotel room at the Hotel New Yorker, where he'd been living for a couple years, and they took 2 truckloads of documents out of his rooms, drawings. They were given to the Office of Alien Property. His patents were seized, hundreds of patents were seized by the government. And keep in mind, by this point, Tesla is an American citizen. And they steal his work. Now, what's really, really interesting is, and this is true, I'm not making this up. There's a scientist at MIT, a brilliant scientist, and they give him this 2 truckloads of Tesla stuff. And they say, go over it, look at it, see what you can make of it. He comes back and he says, there's nothing useful here. He was Donald Trump's uncle. John J. Trump. Look it up. Fred, who's Donald's father.
Wow.
It was his brother. His brother looked at all the Tesla documents.
Did he have the, you mean there's nothing here? There's nothing.
Right, exactly. Nothing to see here, folks. 2 truckloads by the the man who invented the induction engine, had a toy that could create earthquakes in New York, helped make ships invisible, and there's nothing here of value, folks. Nothing to see. Because his ideas were about free energy, free wireless, free everything, right? J.P. Morgan, the robber baron, said to him, listen, Tesla, if you can't put a meter on it, nobody wants it. So Tesla's ideas would have destroyed our economic system, completely destroyed it. So these things, I think, have really been suppressed. He had a patent for a flying saucer that was granted to him in the early 1900s, a flying saucer. So his
protege, Otis T. Carr, designed a working flying saucer in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
And his lab was shut down and all of his work was seized because the technology he was working on, again, could destroy the financial system.
Get away from fossil fuels. Yeah, and that's in the 1950s. I told you what Morgan said. If you can't meter it, no one wants it. No one wants. We had a student in when do we start the theater? In the early 2000s, around 2004, 2005. Her dad had invented an engine, the end product which was drinkable water. This is in the early 2000s. They live somewhere in the middle of nowhere in America now because he was receiving death threats.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's very much nothing to see here, folks. Nothing of value. If you can't meter it, we don't want it.
That makes you wonder, too. We're always, like I said, we haven't researched the moon. We're pushing for Mars. With Tesla, with Elon Musk, seems like he wants to do these things. Do you think we already know everything? And we're just like, we don't need this. We're going to go over here with Mars. Like the government already knows everything about what we need to know about frequency and everything else. So they're going to Mars for some reason. Or they're just like, you know what? This is too much work. We don't need to worry about this. We'll just go explore Mars for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm not. You know what I think it is? I think, Ben Rich was the head of Skunkworks that did, the SR-71. All the names are escaping me, but Skunkworks was the super, super high-tech military plane arm of Lockheed Martin. And Ben Rich, on his deathbed, he said, we have the technology. We have the technology to go to the far side. We have it. So that was his deathbed confession. I think they're play acting at slowing down the trajectory because they're still so dependent on fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still beholden to a lot of money. So I think they're suppressing it, and they make a big show of, oh, we're experimenting with this and we're trying to do it, but we run into all these things. And I think that's what's going on. Although we did see on Unexplained, a lot of countries other than China, India, Israel, they're all planning lunar landings coming up.
They're going to the.
So I don't know. That may just be their training wheels for the big game. I don't know.
I mean, it's a whole different subject. But what's the point in going to Mars? I know there's nothing there. They're trying to find life.
Life on Mars.
I'm big. Obviously, you see, I'm a fisherman. We have explored nothing on Earth, which is good because I feel like if we tried exploring what 75% of the Earth is water, if we try exploring that, we're gonna end up effing up a lot of things. But still, we have so much on our Earth that we need to explore. But it's like, nah, screw it. Let's go over to this red planet over here. So
part of me wonders how much of that isn't just like I don't know, just what's the word I'm looking for? Just like it's the sexy thing, and people want that. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's I don't know.
When I was a kid and my dad gave me a little plastic shovel from the beach, what did I do? I went and got his jackhammer out of the garage. That was way more fun. Totally impractical for prudent mom's garden, but I was having fun and it was much more interesting. And the kids thought I was cool. What's that now?
I was going to say to Dan.
Hey, Lori.
Yes, Dog and Pony Show. That is what I was.
Yeah, thinking. I think it is a Dog and Pony Show, but there also is a small possibility that there is life. There are structures. A lot of really smart people. Moon and Mars. A remote viewer named Ingo Swann said that he was taken from where he lived in New York, put on a train, somewhere outside of DC, got blindfolded, gets taken to a secure location, and they give him these coordinates, space coordinates. And so he's doing this thing, and he's like,
I want to know.
This is in a book. This is in a book he wrote called Penetration. And this was the 80s? I think it was the 80s.
I think.
Anyway, he goes, hey, wait a minute. He goes, wait a minute. I think I'm looking at the moon. I think I'm looking at the dark side of the moon. And they said, just do your thing, man. Like, What do you see? Like, that's what we're paying you for. He says, there are structures. There are buildings. There are structures on the dark side of the moon. They go, keep talking. He goes, there are beings there. I see these beings. Oh, man, they're looking at me. And they shut down the experiment because in remote viewing, what you're looking at shouldn't be able to look at you. It doesn't work that way. It's not a two-way. Yeah. It's not a two-way connection. So that kind of blew my mind about 10 years ago. Because Ingo Swann was a credible guy, and this was under government money and all that. Lori says I knew it. So, but anyway, just to wrap up, we just have a couple more things here.
So quantum physicists are often philosophers, and Tesla actually went to school for both. He read the Vedic scripture and used terms to sort of link things like prana, meaning breath, and akasha, meaning the upper sky. Same thing with Russell Targ, who co-ran the remote viewing program. He was very interested in the Vedas. And really, I always thought too, like reading the Upanishads and some of the Vedic texts, what they're describing is really, Brahma is the unified field. In my mind, that's how I kind of interpret it. So, that's where science and religion really can meet.
Yeah, in quantum physics. I mean, Fritjof Capra wrote the Tao of Physics, and there's this thing called Indra's net, And he was like, this is the substance of the universe. So I think in some ways, human civilization's gone backwards as we kind of embrace materialism, stop looking at the sky, stop sitting by a lake and, checking out for a little while and communing. And maybe the Schumann resonance, getting entrained with that, is a way to reconnect, to bring this back to what you originally wanted to talk about. Yeah. That's what we got, guys.
That's the truth.
one last thing I wanted to say about the Schumann resonance, and I'm sorry I don't remember if it was April or Chastity, but one of them was talking about meditating for the earth, and it's such a brilliant practice, because if we really want to help that the Mother Earth's heartbeat, if we really want to help heal our earth, that's exactly what we need to be doing. And even if we can go sit in the grass, sit on the earth, so much the better. But you don't necessarily have to do that. But again, it's all about intention. And if you're just sending healing energies to our oceans, to our air, to our forest, you're pulling it down again from that super spectrum and really putting the frequency out to help heal the planet and to become once again in alignment with it and trained with it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really hippie-ish and you sound crazy, but you got to be thankful.
Thanks.
You really do.
Thanks, Austin.
No, I'm the same way. No. It's the same way. Like, that's why the term woke thing now, you're like, all of us are talking about this whole government stuff, and then you're considered hippie for, you really need to thank the earth. Like, all the time I go to the beach, and I look at it and say, I'm grateful, because it wasn't for the air, I wouldn't be breathing. If it wasn't for the earth providing, water from the ocean, I wouldn't be eating fish. It's just, it sounds crazy. You sound like a hippie saying it, but really just go out to the world and thank a tree. Don't be, be a tree hugger for real. Like, the tree literally provides your oxygen.
Austin,
just do it.
I can see you hugging a tree, Austin.
All the time. Like, go out there, man. I love it.
Hey, man, Craig takes the night off, and this is an old-timey tent revival going on over here.
I know.
That's right. But truly, trees have their own frequency. And Austin,
Absolutely.
you probably know because you've probably hugged a few. But if you're feeling anxious or whatever, and you go and you hug a tree, it literally you will feel better.
Yeah.
And again, it sounds kind of nutty and hippie and woo, but it's true.
Weird Realities. Hi, Weird Realities. We're going to be on their show soon.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow. Thank you for tuning in.
Some
Weird
fellow
Realities.
travelers are checking. Very, very nice.
That's what I mean. I live out. I grew up in Castleberry, which is like a small town, but still Orlando. It's Disney, blah blah blah. So when I first moved where I'm at now, all the way, it's not the woods, but like we sound like, you hear the term redneck, you're like, oh, those crazy rednecks. But in reality, it's so much nicer when you're out in the open. It's you breathe better. You're not in the city air with all the people, all the gas and stuff. You get out to the open, just do it. Just take an experience. Go to the forest or take a trip I'm trying to go to the Dry Tortugas. I mean, it's literally the old forts out there in Key West, and you're on an old fort, and you're in the middle of the ocean, and you can't beat that. All you have is stars in the middle of the ocean. I mean, that's just,
that
you have
sounds
to get
amazing.
out.
Take this hippie pirate wizard with you.
Yeah, I want to go.
Yeah, put that on the list for when we come to visit.
Definitely.
What was I going to say? Oh, but you know what? Hugging the tree, that saved my hide. So we were involved in a case, and it was this situation where this family, since their kids were little, they were plagued by this ugly, ugly being. Thank you, Julie.
Julie.
And I was writing about it. I was writing a screenplay based on this story, and this thing came after me. So I contacted someone, and I said, I feel this thing like attaching to me. This is scary. It's freaking me out. Oh, Weird Reality is going to be on Three Beards in June. Awesome. It's the family.
Oh, yeah.
We're building a family. And I reached out to someone I trusted, and they said, go out in your yard and hug a tree. And I went out, I hugged the tree, and I saw this 6-foot black mass come out from behind me and cross the street. I kid you not.
Wow.
And it was that grounding, like you were talking about, that literal grounding with that earth energy that was not the frequency of this horrible thing, and it saved me. It saved me from, a hard time. So yeah, good advice, guys.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
Really?
I didn't mean to offend you by saying you're crazy, but
No, I was just joking. I know.
We're all like technology and Facebook and all this, like, oh, we have to stick to it, but just take a break, get away from it. Like you said, go back to what we used to do. Sit by a lake, just get out, walk barefoot in your yard. You have to walk on nature. Like you can't go barefoot in your house. That's man-made. Asphalt, man-made. You have to find sand, just water. I mean, it's with every show we talk about dowsing and water is like the balancing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're made 95%, 75% water.
75%.
Yeah, so we got to train with that. So, guys, this was awesome.
This was so fun hanging out with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. The way it's flowing, we could go on and on and on, but I know you all got to get back to your life. And I just want to plug Becky Ansel. Craig, I hope you enjoyed your dinner. I'm looking for my doggy bag tomorrow, but happy birthday. Happy birthday,
yes,
Becky.
happy birthday, Becky.
That's awesome.
These guys survived it. They did it, and it's okay. You can take a night off, and they will carry on.
Oh, yeah.
Like the wayward sons they are. So, guys, I think this makes 4 times now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We love coming on.
It's all it's about. It's just all of us. You guys, Teresa and Dan, Julie, Chris Garcia. I mean, it's just one big family. That's all we need. Keep plugging everybody's stuff.
Also, Joey, go ahead and plug your Red Thread Collective. Let them know where they can find you on that. Because I tuned in a couple times, and our host is no longer the host. He says it's weird being on the bottom of the co-host, but go ahead and plug your Red Thread and let them know about that.
That's right. So the Red Thread Collective is a group of researchers. We examine fringe theories, and we pick a topic. We've done, and this was Craig's. We did the Denver International Airport and the Georgia Guidestones. And then we did New Mexico and Nevada. So we talked about Area 51, Dulce Base, all that kinds of Los Alamos. In July, we're going to be doing Antarctica. So we pick a topic and then we go off for a couple of months and we each do our own independent research. And we get together for an hour and a half on air under the banner of the Red Thread Collective. And we share our findings and we try to be rigorous. And if we don't agree, we say that in a respectful way. And we try to pull the stuff apart. What's there nothing to? What is there something to? And so it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun because a lot of baby gets thrown out with the bathwater of going, oh, it's conspiracy theories and everybody's crazy and it's nutty. No, they're just fringe theories, and it's theory. You say it right in it, right?
Yeah.
A conspiracy is more than one person, and a theory is just an idea. There's one guy who's a conspiracy theorist, and he goes, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy factualist. That's where you got because we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, right? Conspiracy theorists has taken a bad turn, but
it has.
People
so
need to sit back.
We call them fringe theories. So thank you for that. And am I allowed to say you can catch our show 7 o'clock on Thursday nights on the Movie Outer Realms Facebook page?
Yes, we'd be offended if you didn't.
Oh, thank you. So you guys earned a cold drink and a good night. Go do it, and we'll let you wrap up your own show.
Keep driving that car, Chris. It's coming.
Exactly.
It's coming.
You're in the Bugatti. I see it.
Well, thank you so much. And also, we're rebroadcasted on J&J Beard Co. on Thursday. Thank you, Patriot Radio.
We'll check out, obviously, Nanny Cakes. If you're in the Central Florida area, not this weekend. I think next weekend, the 24th, she'll be in DeLand at the Craft Fair and Car Show. So check her out. She's selling, I think she calls them doobies. I can't remember what they're called, but they're giant, like 2 cookies with this much icing. Really unhealthy, but very good to eat. So you got to check them out.
The doobie name make it sound like edible.
It's not doobies. It's I forgot, but they're really good. But they're not.
I'm thinking if you do partake of some doobies, definitely get you some of them cakes.
Definitely.
Now we're banned for sure. You're gonna get letters and phone calls.
Oh, we have worse than that.
All right, guys.
check us out, 3yearspodcast.com, Patreon, and all of our socials. We are working on TikTok, as Craig says, the TikTok, but we're working on it. So, again, Joey, Tonya, thank you so much for coming on. And definitely, guys, watch them tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So,
Peace.
Have a great night, guys.
Something like that. All right. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Peace.
Bye, guys.